Hey guys, it's Tony and today I'd like to talk about being jaded, especially when it comes to your craft, whether it's animation, art, film. Over time, we're bound to get jaded. What does it mean to be jaded and why does it happen? And is there a way to no longer feel jaded of what we do? The way I would describe being jaded is becoming dispassionate, detached, maybe even bored of what you do. It can lead to a lack of enthusiasm, it can kill motivation, and it can leave a more nihilistic point of view. So I will tell you this, there's a part of me that is really jaded in what I do. I work in the animation industry, I've endured some of the bullshit that happens in it. I'm not a veteran that has decades of experience, but I think I've had enough experience or I've seen several things that definitely changed my relationship to my work with animation. You have to understand that we form a paradigm over time. Every one of us forms a paradigm. And the way I would describe a paradigm is sort of a way of life and how to get around it. You know, as time goes on, we grow. We figure out new ways to live the life that we want. We choose our values. We choose our beliefs and our communities. We experience hardships and we try to find ways around it. And we're always in the hunt for finding purpose of what we do. We have experiences, good and bad. And again, we find solutions to get by. Now, as time goes by and as we move forward with our work and our industry or whatever it is, that paradigm is challenged over time. The expectation changes, the trends change, people change, technology changes, and how people consume entertainment, media, and art, it changes over time. Nowadays, we're seeing a rise of animated content using the phone aspect ratio, but making content for social media with that format, the workflow and the pipeline that we have to abide to, like how much we have to make, how fast we have to make it, and who is consuming that stuff. Most important of all, is this something that we want to do? Is it something that resonates with us? And it gets super tiring to come at this crossroad where you kind of have to choose, do I adapt to this thing or do I keep doing what I do? That gets tiring over time. And as time goes by, you can start having an identity crisis or change in your identity in general. I'm not the same person as I was when I started in this industry. I've grown in so many different ways. How I see myself, things that I value, and things that I cater to. I think that when I first joined the industry, I had this very clear laid out plan for myself. Like I saw myself as being the best of the best, being the top in my field, and being someone who was directing movies, who was taking leadership roles, supervising directing roles, and probably show running. Now there are several things that are happening too. So when I wasn't landing these opportunities or these roles, I felt like I was failing myself, or I also felt like I wasn't really clear on who I was or what I was contributing to this field at all. Another is that a lot of the things that I thought about what makes good work or good animation sort of changed. Like I had to rewire all the things that my teachers taught me in the past and, things that I don't really agree with anymore, and trying to find my own truth in what I do with my work. And then I was trying to figure out what else is out there besides what I do for work. What else is out there besides this animation industry? So because of these really hard-hitting questions about your identity and, your purpose in this field and how tiring it can be, you can have a pretty turbulent relationship with your field, with what you do, the people involved. So that also contributes to the factor of being jaded. Next is burnout, and there are so many levels to burnout, and I'll get to that. I'm not going to talk about or stress about how mundane or how much work goes into animation because, that's a given. Sometimes the amount of work and time isn't worth the benefits you can get from it. There were many times where I poured all of my time and my energy on a task, an assignment, on a sequence, and I would get notes and feedback, I would address them, I would revise it hundreds of times, only to see it get redone completely or taken out for the final product. Sure, I will still get credit and pay for the work I was a part of, but there's a part of me that feels more burned out because I'll feel like I was inadequate enough. There were times where I felt like I contributed nothing or I felt useless. Now, I will also say that this is not my fault, this is no one's fault. This is the nature of the industry where there's a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of experimentation and exploration, but it does feel awful when you're doing all this work and you're addressing all these notes, you're addressing the feedback, you're doing all the revisions when they tell you to, but it never makes it at the end of the day. And for people who take pride in their work and they want to see their work be seen by many other people, this hurts. And I can say that I've been jaded because of this, and I can see how many people feel off when this happens to them so many times. But yeah, burnout isn't just working super long hours, stressing yourself out, always being in crunch time. It's also constantly asking questions about yourself, like, am I contributing to anything? What's my purpose here? I do all these things by the book, I do them right, but why isn't it making it at the end of the day? These are other forms of burnout that can lead to being jaded. Next is being involved with community drama or studio drama. Sometimes I like to call this being a part of bullshit. Now, the things you do have control over are things like doing your job, making creative decisions with your work, how much effort you want to put into your job. But again, there are mostly things that people don't have control over, especially when they're working in a studio with a lot of people. There are studio politics, circumstances that you have no control over, like let's say a studio decides to being laid off from a studio because something happened within the studio that's not related to your department. Certain personalities or egos you don't jive with that you have to put up with. So I do want to talk about my experience. I've been in a lot of canceled projects, or projects that will maybe never see the light of day. And some of this is because there were politics within the studio that prevents a movie from being finished or released, decisions made by the higher ups, a change of leadership within the studio, which is probably the most common case of why movies and shows get canceled. And of course, the egos that I dealt with people that I had to work for. Some people have such big egos that they're hard to work with. They're very judgmental about things. They make the working relationship super hard, and even though you want to try and address it, sometimes the studio is just going to side with the person who has the ego and the person that's giving you trouble. There's an issue that some directors and supervisors have where they have such a bad ego. There's a lot of people that don't know how to deal with their own issues and take it out on their team. So you can get jaded not because the project isn't to your liking or the project isn't cool and the work isn't great, but it's also because the people involved in it are hard to deal with. Life is more complicated than your work. Now, I remember being new to the industry, I was very passionate, being young. It's easy to view your work as a big part of your personality. I remember I said I'd make short films all the time on the side because I made 4 big ones during my time at school. So I remember giving myself extra homework, extra assignments so I could show it to supervisors at the studio to get good notes and feedback. And I remember I had a lot of growing up to do. I also wanted to see myself in other things outside of animation, like having a different hobby, traveling the world, building a community, taking up, again, other hobbies outside of animation. When animation was my only world in life, my ego was a lot more fragile. So I think whenever I felt like my career was in jeopardy or it was compromised or something happened within my work, it was easier for me to become super jaded, really cynical or pessimistic. It affected my mood and it also affected my relationship with my friends. Every time they tried to help, I would always push them away, saying things like, oh, you don't understand. So let's say you're an animation person. If your life only revolves about the world of animation and the community and something compromises it, it's so easy to get jaded. Like, the problem I see with many artists on Twitter is, let's say a studio shuts down, there's massive layoffs, or there's like some controversy within the studio or the art community. Everyone has this point of view saying things like, the animation industry's done for, we should give up. It's hopeless. Animation sucks. My life is hopeless. Blah, blah, blah. So when your life only revolves about one thing, again, very easy to get jaded. You also have to remember that life isn't always fair. Now, it's easy to believe that if you just work super hard and give it your best, just telling yourself and doing all the hard work that you can, you will climb up in this field, you will become the best of the best, and everything will go your way if you just put in the amount of work. Now, I still like to believe something like this because I'm someone who also realized that it's more about the journey than the destination. Like, there are so many times where I put in the hard work, but I learned a lot during the heat of hard work rather than trying to aim for the results. But if you only think about the results from it, then you're only going to disappoint yourself, especially if you're an ambitious person. It could also be just being at the right place at the right time, or being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You can put in all the work that you can, having this one goal in mind and not reaching that goal at all. You can only imagine how easy it is to feel jaded after that. Some people land great opportunities because they have great connections, they have great networking skills regardless of their skills. Some people will climb up just because they have great ideas, they have great social skills, or they have other people like agents helping them move up. And being at the right time at the right place, you also have to understand that this is an industry that thrives on trends and also thrives on casting. I remember when I was younger, I used to be super baffled when people got really good roles or opportunities that I was fighting for that I personally thought they didn't deserve. Why do I have to stick to my lane where I'm working super hard, I'm showing off that I'm capable of these things, I'm capable of more, but these people who have little to no experience compared to me get it. So it's easy for someone like this to feel that they've been robbed of their opportunities, they've been robbed of their work. And sure, you can come up with counter arguments that this person wasn't good to work with, they had a bad ego, maybe that's why they weren't given these opportunities. But at the end of the day, from their perspective, they worked super hard to try and get what they wanted, they didn't get it, therefore they're jaded. And it's not so hard to understand why. So how can we avoid the feeling of being jaded? And I can only talk about what I've learned and my overall experiences and how I'm going about it, because I'm a very jaded person myself. I have very strong opinions about these things, and it's definitely affected my relationship with my craft, with what I do in this field. So I want to talk about things that sort of helped me or things that you could consider. So one is that I always have to constantly remind myself about why I got into animation in the first place. What are my core values and beliefs? So, personally, I like to use my work to connect with other people, to learn about animation as a medium, and to be always optimistic about what I do, because I think what I do also makes me feel empowered. And it's so cool to see comments saying that what I do empowers other people to do their own thing. So, I really do think that's a very powerful core belief that I want to do. And also tell genuine things or stories that I want to tell to a younger version of me that was bored in a hotel room, flipping through channels, and then stopping by an animation that inspired them. For me, next is that I tend to surround myself with communities that don't elevate jaded feelings. So I only hang out with a small group of friends. I don't hang out with ambitious people all the time because they always want to hustle, and that makes me feel I compare myself to those guys and I get FOMO. And I have a community outside of animation where the animation industry is not a part of their world at all. So being able to talk to them about different things, seeing how they view life in a different lens is so refreshing. It makes me both admire and respect other factors in life. I would also say taking action into your own hands to build the passion that you want. A lot of people always depend on the studio to make their dream project and to bring happiness to them. But again, the studio is a studio. Not all of them have your best interests. So I would say, make stuff by yourself just so you can express yourself as a human being and as a craftsman. Last but not least, I would also avoid comparison. So I've been kind of stepping away from social media. I've been stepping away from posting art because I find myself trapped in the game of counting likes, counting followers. Even though I know it's a bad habit, it happens. So that's why I've been sort of distancing myself from platforms like that. Sometimes when I see other artists that I learned with or I grew up with or that I went to school with and they're doing super well, they're in higher places now, I also see myself comparing myself to them, why they're in great places and why I'm stuck to where I'm at. You also have to remind yourself that, hey, there's more to life than, doing all this work. Maybe they had other hardships of their own that you don't really know or you don't understand. So it's pointless to compare because, like I said before, life isn't always fair. It's how you choose to go about it, of what you're given with. Focus on what you're given with and work with that, rather than trying to count what you don't have and what others have. Anyways, that's all. Bye. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.